Thanks for coming to Politics and Life. I hope all my freedom-loving patriots are having a blessed day. It looks like the press briefing is about to begin in 10 minutes, so until it actually does begin, we're going to react to a very crazy story that the left-wing media and the Democrats are obsessed with right now. That is this illegal Venezuelan gang member who they think that we should just bring back to our own country because the Democrats, as you guys know now, are the party of supporting illegals, terrorists, pedophiles, groomers, and yeah, they have no morals, unfortunately. They would prefer to keep these people in our country who are here illegally instead of protecting the American people. So until the actual press briefing starts, as I said, in about 10 minutes, we're going to react to the Black conservative perspective. He was reporting on this, and then we'll get to the press briefing. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let's get started, y'all.
This was a El Salvadorian man who was illegally in this country, who was affiliated with MS-13.
There is no evidence to that.
Let's set the record straight about who this person is.
There's no evidence that he was a gang member.
With all due respect, if the Department of Justice has come out and said that he has gang affiliations, just like the same man who killed Rachel Morin had gang affiliations. So you would have told me before Rachel Morin's death, you would have defended that man and said he had no gang affiliations, and he went on to kill Rachel Morin. So instead of defending this gentleman, talk about who he actually is and talk about the risk in keeping illegal criminals in this country. This is exactly what President Trump was elected to do, to return these people back to their home countries, and that's what he did.
We're not defending him. I'm going to reiterate that is unsubstantiated.
What is she, a child? Literally going back and forth with someone who is an expert in this field and knows better and works with the Trump administration. I don't understand why the left, this is the hill they want to die on. They really want to protect these illegal gang members from being deported out of our country. This just shows you how out of touch your basic Democrat voter is these days. People that are just coming in, it's about 10 minutes till the press briefing starts, so we're reacting to the Black conservative perspective on YouTube. He is talking about how the left is dying on the hill that they continue to die on, defending this illegal that should have never been here to begin with. As soon as the press briefing starts, I'll switch over.
There is no evidence of him being a gang member. He is married to a U.S. citizen, and he was in this country legally. Okay, but we don't know if he was
being married does not make you not a gang member.
There's no evidence. We're going to move on. There's no evidence that he was a gang member, and I want to reiterate that to our viewers.
The Department of Justice came out and said there was credible evidence that he was a member or affiliated.
You said he's a gang member, and he wasn't legally allowed to be here, which, again, he was legally allowed to be here. And he is married to an American citizen.
You can hold court for him all you want. He is no longer in this country.
All right.
The Americans are safer because of it.
And to go back to the original question, so right now the White House seems to be doing nothing about getting him back, and that's fine. I'm going to move on.
He's an illegal immigrant. He was here illegally with deportation orders in 2019. What part of that do you not understand?
I understand the story very well, and I'm going to stop going back and forth with you on this, but I will say,
this is so infuriating
in this country. Is there any scenario under which
he was an illegal immigrant?
We're going to move on this.
No, I will not let you go forward.
Okay.
He was an illegal alien in this country with a deportation order in 2019. He is an El Salvadorian citizen. If you are not a citizen of the United States of America, here illegally, there are grounds to deport you, in which happened recently.
This again, unsubstantiated. Those are not the facts, but I will move on. President.
Boy. So we got to talk about the Democrat Party. Okay, another story that I think is a great example of why the Democrat Party has a 21% approval rating. Probably worse than that at this point. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrat Party, their real approval rating.
If you guys are coming in, I'm just reacting to this video. The press briefing is about to start. So as soon as it does start, I will transition to that video. Until then, we're just reacting to the Democrats that are obsessed with this story about this one gang member who they want back into our country for some reason, because this is the hill the Democrats want to die on. They are the party of the criminals. They are the party of the illegals. And this story right here explains exactly what I mean by that. But as soon as that the press briefing starts, I will transition straight to it. It should be any minute now.
It's in the single digits, okay? It's just not cool to be a Democrat nowadays, right? A lot of people are ashamed to be associated with the Democrat Party, okay? That is how bad it has become. And one of the reasons why is because Democrats have decided that they're going to double and triple down on everything that lost them the 2024 election. Okay, that's what they're going to do. And stories like this, specifically the story involving the illegal immigrant alleged gang member that was rightfully deported, but mistakenly sent to El Salvador. Yeah, their defense of this individual, okay, them making this issue their number one issue, okay, them choosing to die on this hill, despite the fact that Nayib Bukele has already stated that he's not releasing his own citizen, right? This is an illegal immigrant, alleged gang member, who's a citizen of El Salvador, not a citizen of the United States of America. Okay, he's not American. Okay, they are bending over backwards to basically demand that he come back to the United States of America. And they're upset that the Trump administration is refusing to essentially strong arm Nayib Bukele into forcing the release of an El Salvadorian citizen.
It's an error and it was a mistake. Look, so this, I think you're speaking about their public view of the case.
I'm telling you that their view of it is that
public.
It's an El Salvador citizen who was sent back to El Salvador, who was in the country illegally, who, according to some people in his long process, which does include an existing deportation order, believes that he has an affiliation with MS-13. As I said, there's no version of this man's life where he comes back. And let me say one more thing. The people that want him brought back need to understand something. If the president of El Salvador releases him, and we do facilitate his return, when he lands in this country, one of two things will happen. He will be arrested, and then he'll either be sent back to El Salvador, where he is now, or some other country that I promise you don't want to go to. He's not going to be allowed to come back and live in this country as though he is a U.S. citizen.
That's literally the definition of tyranny, right? So here's what's going to happen. We're going to throw him in jail. No, there's a thing called the rule of law and due process.
You guys didn't even follow the rule of law during the last administration. They let in millions upon millions of pedophiles, illegals, terrorists, gang members that brought havoc onto the American people. Now you want to talk about the American law because Trump deported a gang member who is illegally here? These Democrats are such scumbags, especially when it comes to CNN and MSDNC. They are paid puppets for the Democrat Party, and everyone knows it. I believe the press briefing is about to start, so let me disconnect from this video, and I'm going to connect it. Just give me a second, guys. I hope you guys are having a great day. If you wouldn't mind, if you are here from X or Facebook, please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Politics and Life. Here it is right here. Looks like it's about to start any minute. Who else likes Karoline Leavitt? I think she is a rock star. I think she is the perfect person for Trump's press secretary. She doesn't take no shit. She actually strikes back at the fake news press corps, and I'm here for it every single time she does these press briefings. I'm going to do a story later about China pretty much exposing how us consumers in the U.S. have been getting ripped off for decades, it seems like, or forever, when it comes to luxury products, when it comes to just pretty much everything. It seems like almost everything has came from China, and these big chain industries, for example, Louis Vuitton or these luxury, Gucci, Balenciaga, they will get these products for 10, even Nike, get these products from China for, let's say, Nike shoes that they sell for usually $200. They'll get them there for $10 and upsell them to $200. And because of these tariffs that Trump beautifully has brought to the front or to the front of the table, it's exposing everything and actually shows that us consumers in America have been getting ripped off for decades. And now, even though I think China is our number one threat and enemy, they are actually eliminating the middleman, which is the consumer, the big media chains, and saying, come buy it from us directly and we'll give you the prices of what they were buying it for. That's crazy. And I think that kind of should be like the story of the century in a way. I won't buy anything from China, but I mean, I would understand why people who are for luxury items might do that, just because they're not paying thousands upon thousands of dollars for something that was made and sold for $10. That's crazy to me. So I was always against these luxury items. I knew it was It's just disgusting that they would charge that much for clothes, bags, etc. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop talking. Here we go.
I apologize for my tardiness, but I came directly from the Oval. I have some newsy updates to share from the president, which I know you all very much value and appreciate. So let's get to it. The president promised millions of Christians across the country on the campaign trail that he would create a White House faith office when he returned to the White House, and he has delivered on that promise. The White House Faith Office has put together an extraordinary week-long celebration currently underway for Holy Week ahead of Easter Sunday. The president signed a Holy Week proclamation, filmed a special presidential video message, and will be hosting a pre-Easter dinner tomorrow night and a White House staff Easter worship service on Thursday. The president and the First Lady are honored to continue the tradition of the White House Easter egg roll, which will take place on the South Lawn next Monday. In other news, President Trump is turning America into a manufacturing superpower again. Yesterday, there was a monumental announcement by NVIDIA, one of the largest companies in the world. This is just the latest example. For the first time ever, chip-making giant NVIDIA will produce AI supercomputers entirely in the United States.
Yes.
As part of its pledge to produce $50 billion worth of AI infrastructure in our country over the next 4 years. With their manufacturing partners, they have commissioned more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing space to build and test NVIDIA Blackwell chips in the great state of Arizona and AI supercomputers in the great state of Texas. NVIDIA's founder and CEO Jensen Huang touted how the engines of the world's AI infrastructure are being built in the United States for the first time. This is the Trump effect. This follows trillions in other U.S. investments announced already, including $500 billion from Apple in U.S.-based manufacturing and training, $100 billion from TSMC and U.S.-based chips manufacturing, and the $500 billion private investment led by OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank in artificial intelligence infrastructure.
Want to try Ozempic?
Workers. On the border, President Trump continues to break records and protect our homeland. According to CBP, Border Patrol apprehensions along the southwest border for the entire month of March 2025 were lower than the first 2 days of March 2024 under Joe Biden. Incredible law enforcement officers are arresting violent illegal aliens from American communities every day. Here are a few examples from the latest ICE report, which I received this morning. ICE Los Angeles arrested a 54-year-old citizen of Mexico convicted of rape by threat, sodomy with a person under 14 years, and kidnapping in San Jose, California. ICE Houston has arrested a 23-year-old citizen of Mexico convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child in Cook County, Illinois. ICE Houston arrested a 64-year-old citizen of Honduras convicted of murder in Los Angeles County, California. ICE Chicago arrested a 49-year-old citizen of Guatemala convicted of assault and arson in Prince Williams, Virginia, not far from here. ICE Denver arrested a 36-year-old citizen of Mexico who is registered as a sex offender and has been convicted of sexual assault of a child in Lake County, Colorado.
The disgusting.
ICE Baltimore arrested a 50-year-old citizen of China convicted of sex trafficking in Bel Air, Maryland. And ICE Boston arrested a 46-year-old citizen of Jamaica convicted of 3 counts of rape of a child and 2 counts of indecent assault and battery of a child under 14 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Disgusting.
President Trump and our administration will not rest until every single violent illegal alien is removed from our country. The safety of the American people is too important to settle for anything less. On that note, the Democrat and media outrage over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who is hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable.
Yep, I agree.
Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year. That's because, unfortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. Of course, I am referring to Rachel Morin.
And nothing, CNN, MSNBC, they won't even be talking about this person. I guarantee it now. They won't even be talking about this person that was murdered. But they've been obsessing, as I said in the video that I started off with this illegal who should have never been here to begin with. That's your today's leftist news, guys. Zero credibility, paid puppets for the Democrat Party.
And if you didn't see yesterday, a Maryland jury found illegal alien Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez guilty of murdering Rachel Morin in August of 2023. She was a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was jogging in an otherwise safe community northeast of Baltimore when this monster ambushed, strangled, and beat her to death before stuffing her brutalized body in a tunnel drain. The Morin family finally got justice yesterday, but they will never get Rachel back. Our hearts go out to Rachel's family, her 5 children, and her mother, Patty, who has suffered the unimaginable loss of her daughter. In case you missed it last week, President Trump signed a national security presidential memorandum directing federal agencies administering federal land on the border to make land available to the Defense Department in a new national defense area. This followed the president's day 1 executive order committing his administration to marshal all available resources and authorities to stop the unprecedented flood of illegal aliens into our country and to obtain complete operational control of the borders of the United States of America. Once again, the president is fulfilling another key promise. This new national defense area spans more than 170 miles across our border in New Mexico. But in the coming weeks, this administration will add more than 90 miles in the state of Texas. This national defense area will enhance our ability to detect, interdict, and prosecute the illegal aliens, criminal gangs, and terrorists who were able to invade our country without consequence for the past 4 years under the Biden administration. It will also bolster our defenses against fentanyl and other dangerous narcotics that have been poisoning our communities. With all of this work being done to make America great again, we continue to see a positive response from the American public. A brand new poll published from the Daily Mail and JL Partners this morning found that President Trump's approval rating is at an all-time high. That's because the president is working tirelessly to keep his promises to the American people. As I just saw him doing today in the Oval Office. We have a reporter in our new.
Sorry, guys. That's with 90% bad media against Trump. Could you imagine if it was fair across the board? Trump would have 100% approval rating. That was if it was reported accurately.
Media seat today, Matthew Foldy. I like your boots, Matt. Who is the editor-in-chief of the Washington Reporter. Washington Reporter is a new, fast-growing outlet that breaks stories about legislation and interviews leaders in Congress and across the administration. The publication's readership includes the highest levels of business and government. And with that, please kick us off, Matt.
And we've interviewed you as well. So, Karoline, thanks so much for having me here on behalf of our readership and the millions of Americans who I think appreciate what you're doing with the new media seat here, making this more accessible briefing room. I'm curious with Harvard, we saw the Trump administration today announced it's cutting around $2 billion, or freezing $2 billion in funds to Harvard because the campus has serious problems with violence and with anti-Semitism. We saw former President Obama, side with Harvard, which rejected the Trump administration's demands. I'm curious, where does the administration see this going with Harvard and with other colleges and universities in America that are refusing to reform in wake of the sort of craziness that we've seen take over some of them?
Thank you, Matt, for being here, and thanks for the question. When it comes to Harvard, the president's position on this is grounded in common sense, in the basic principle that Jewish American students or students of any faith should not be illegally harassed and targeted on our nation's college campuses. And we unfortunately saw that illegal discrimination take place on the campus of Harvard. There are countless examples to prove it, particularly with the stunning confession by then Harvard President Claudine Gay, who said that bullying and harassment depended on the context. The president at that time made it clear to the American public he was not going to tolerate illegal harassment and anti-Semitism taking place in violations of federal law. So the president made it clear to Harvard, follow federal law, no longer break Title VI, which was passed by Congress to ensure no student can be discriminated against on the basis of race, and you will receive federal funding. Unfortunately, Harvard has not taken the president or the administration's demands seriously. All the president is asking, don't break federal law, and then you can have your federal funding. I think the president is also begging a good question. more than $2 billion out the door to Harvard when they have a more than $50 billion endowment? Why are the American taxpayers subsidizing a university that has billions of dollars in the bank already? And we certainly should not be funding a place where such grave anti-Semitism.
It's amazing what Harvard has turned into. They used to be the world's most pronounced college to go to. Now it's just the most wokest school ran by the dumbest people. That's what I truly feel.
I'm curious, you just mentioned Rachel Morin. I'm a Maryland man, and I think most Marylanders appreciate what you were saying today. We've seen that Chris Van Hollen, who was Rachel Morin's senator, basically threatening to fly to El Salvador to press for the release of someone who was in America illegally. What, and not as much sort of from him about Rachel Morin's horrific murder and the verdict that was, I think, rightly reached yesterday. What does the administration think about the priorities we're seeing from Senate Democrats in terms of illegal immigrants instead of the work that agencies like ICE and DHS are doing with the Trump administration?
It's mind-boggling, the priorities of the modern-day Democrat Party. I think it's atrocious that you have Democrats in Congress on Capitol Hill who swear an oath to protect their constituents and to serve them in Washington, D.C., spending more time defending illegal immigrant gang members than their own constituents and law-abiding American citizens like Rachel Morin. And I saw the president personally on the campaign trail, and I continue to see him in his role as president of the United States, put American families first, reach out to the victims, the families of victims at the hands of illegal immigrant crime. And frankly, the actions and the words of the Democrat Party prove they could not care less about the American public. And maybe if they did, they'd see a bit higher approval ratings right now. Thanks for being here with us today. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. To follow up on something that you just said, why do Ivy League schools get so much federal funding?
It's a very good question. And it's a question the president has obviously raised in his discussions and negotiations with not just Harvard, but also Columbia and many other Ivy League institutions. We have the anti-Semitism task force, which the president promised and delivered on. The anti-Semitism task force is across the government, representatives from various federal agencies who meet on a weekly basis to discuss the question that you just raised. And I think a lot of Americans are wondering why their tax dollars are going to these universities when they are not only indoctrinating our nation's students, but also allowing such egregious illegal behavior to occur.
To follow up on immigration, deporting American citizens to Central American prisons, is it legal, or do you need to change the law to do it?
Well, it's another question that the president has raised. It's a legal question that the president is looking into. And he talked about this yesterday when with his meeting with President Bukele in the Oval Office. He would only consider this, if legal, for Americans who are the most violent, egregious, repeat offenders of crime, who nobody in this room wants living in their communities.
Yeah. And then there's this CHNV thing. President Biden let more than 530,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela into the U.S. with this CHNV program. He did it with the stroke of a pen. And now a judge will not let President Trump undo it with the stroke of a pen. So amazing. Are you guys going to give all 530,000 plus people individual deportation hearings, or are you just going to try to deport them?
I spoke to White House counsel's office about this morning, because obviously another rogue district court judge is trying to block the administration's mass deportation efforts with this latest injunction. We will fight this in the court of law, and we will ensure that every individual who illegally entered our country and was really taken advantage of by the previous administration because they abused the parole system in this country to fast track legal status, as they said.
Not only that, in my state of California, these illegals were getting thousands per month off our taxes, free healthcare, free money loaded on a card, free EBT, free everything with our taxes from this last administration. So the fact that anyone can vote Democrat these days is just mind-boggling on that. Oh, it's so infuriating.
For these illegal immigrants, and they completely abused our legal system. Many of these paroled individuals were then given temporary protective status, which the intention of that TPS was only supposed to be used in times of war or storm or destruction in the home countries of these migrants. It was completely abused. These migrants came here for economic reasons, and they illegally entered our country, and the president is not going to tolerate that. And so we will continue to focus on deporting as many individuals as we can. Jennifer.
One on tariffs and one on Russia. Can you give us any sort of an update on which deals are in hand or are close? Which countries are reaching a deal on tariffs? And then on Russia, can you give us an update on what the agreement was with Russia? The president yesterday said that he thinks we'll be seeing some very good deals very soon. Can you talk a little bit about what Russia agreed to?
Sure. I don't want to get ahead of our United States Trade Ambassador and Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Treasury, all the great individuals who are working incredibly hard to cut these good trade deals. And the president's deeply involved in this as well. He has made it clear to his trade team he wants to personally sign off on all of these deals too. And so I don't want to get ahead of them on announcements. But obviously, as you've heard from numerous administration officials, there have been many talks with countries. We've had more than 15 deals, pieces of paper put on the table, proposals that are actively being considered. And as we've said consistently, more than 75 countries have reached out. So there's a lot of work to do. We very much understand that, but we do believe that we can announce some deals very soon.
And then on Russia, can you say, did Russia agree to anything with Special Envoy Steve Witkoff?
I don't want to get ahead of those negotiations as well. What I can tell you is that they were a productive conversation was had. As the presidential envoy Steve Witkoff said last night, he believes that Russia wants to end this war, and the president believes that as well. There is incentive for Russia to end this war, and perhaps that could be economic partnerships with the United States, but we need to see a ceasefire first, and the president and the presidential envoy Witkoff made that very clear to the Russians. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. And I also want to thank your press office for releasing that information that you cited up there regarding the ICE arrests of the last couple of days. And I have them right here, but what I might ask is, why not release the same information for those who were deported to El Salvador?
Well, first of all, the information was released by the Department of Homeland Security. The individuals on the flights to El Salvador are foreign terrorists, and those are counterterrorism operations. They are much different than the arrests and final order of removals that you see on a day-to-day basis that law enforcement agents are conducting around the country.
That information was not, to that detail, was not released by DHS.
I just told you the reason. It was a counterterrorism operation, a deportation of foreign terrorists, not illegal criminals who have been convicted of heinous crimes living in our American communities. It's two different things. Foreign terrorist, illegal immigrant criminal, two different things, two different definitions. You should look them up. Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Does the president support raising the corporate tax rate to pay for all these other tax cuts he wants to see moved through Congress?
Look, I've seen this idea proposed. I've heard this idea discussed, but I don't believe the president has made a determination on whether he supports it or not.
And then secondly, do you have any information on the status of Eden Alexander? Hamas says they lost contact with the unit guarding him following an Israeli airstrike earlier today.
I don't have updates. I have not seen that report, but I can certainly check in with our National Security Council. I have spoken to the president about Eden Alexander, and he's made it very clear to our national security team that finding him is a priority, but unfortunately, I don't have any updates to share. But it's a very important matter, and certainly we can check in. Sure.
Hi. How concerned is the president that a federal judge could hold a Trump administration official in contempt of court for defying deportation orders?
We are complying with all court orders. So I see what you're trying to do there with that question, but we're very confident that every action taken by this administration is within the confines of the law, and we continue to comply with the court's orders. And you have seen that, and the president made that clear yesterday in the Oval Office with President Bukele. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. Could you, just going back to El Salvador, could you just explain to us a little bit more about the legal basis on which you may be able to send U.S. citizens to prison there? I know you said that President Trump is looking at it, but can you explain to us a little bit more about how that might be possible?
We're looking at it, and when I have more for you to share, I certainly will. Sure.
Still going off the El Salvador questions, yesterday in the Oval Office, administration officials made it very clear that El Salvador is responsible for Mr. Abrego Garcia, yet El Salvador's president said we're not going to do anything with him. So my question is, who is responsible for this?
No, he said even though the court says we need to bring him back, we're not going to bring gang members, illegals, and pedophiles and these terrorists back to America. That's not what we're for, because El Salvador went from the worst, most destructive country now to one of the most safest countries to live in. And that's exactly what Trump's aiming to do, exactly just like El Salvador did.
And then where he's going to end up.
Well,
are they so obsessed with this illegal?
President Bukele said that he is not going to smuggle a foreign terrorist back into the United States of America, as many in this room in the Democrat Party seemingly want him to do. Abrego Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result. There is never going to be a world in which this is an individual who's going to live a peaceful life in Maryland, because he is a foreign terrorist and a MS-13 gang member. Not only have we confirmed that, President Bukele yesterday in the Oval Office confirmed that as well. So he went back to his home country, where he will face consequences for his gang affiliation and his engagement in human trafficking. I'm not sure what is so difficult.
Could you imagine if the fake left press corps spent as much time as they do obsessing over this illegal who should have never been here and actually did real journalism, how today's society would be? I mean, oh my gosh, it's amazing. CNN and all these leftist news press corps, they are so obsessed with this one illegal dude who should have never been here to begin with, which just shows exactly where their priorities are: for illegals, for pedophiles, groomers, etc., not for the American taxpayer. It's disgusting behavior.
About this for everyone in the media to understand, and it's appalling, truly appalling, that there has been so much time covering this alleged human trafficker and this gang member, MS-13 gang member. It's truly striking to me. Karen.
Thanks, Caroline. The president was posting on Truth Social today about helping American farmers. And last week in his cabinet meeting, he was talking about a plan to work with farmers to retain workers who are in the U.S. illegally, provided that they leave and then come back through what he said would be a legal process. Can you give details on what that would look like? How many workers he's talking about, how long a plan like that would take to implement, and the timeline for more details on getting this actually to implementation?
I can check in with our immigration and our policy team and get you some more details on that, Karen.
Or is this something he wants to roll out soon? I mean, he was talking back and forth with Secretary Rollins.
Right.
This is kind of imminent that he wants to do this.
Yeah, look, the president is in constant communication with all of his cabinet secretaries, particularly Secretary Rollins, who has the backs of American farmers and ranchers. It's something that he spoke about with her in the front of all the cameras in the cabinet room, but I'll check in with not only our immigration team, but also with USDA, and we'll get you an answer. Jonathan.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi, it's good to see you in here.
You too. The president has long said that it would be an abuse of power for a president to direct prosecutors to investigate him. Last week, President Trump explicitly directed the Justice Department to scrutinize Chris Krebs to see if it can find any evidence of criminal wrongdoing.
He was the one that said the 2020 election was the most secure in history. We already know that's a lie, dude. He is next. He needs to be arrested, because we know that there was a big ordeal in regards to the 2020 election. We have whistleblowers, we have proof, we have affidavits, we have eyewitnesses who worked on the ground. We have the water main break. I mean, we have videos of people stuffing ballots. I cannot wait till the destruction comes and the deep state is down. We need that to come sooner than later, I'm telling you. But I mean, I do love what I'm seeing from this administration. I do not like Pam Bondi. That is one person I cannot stand. I think she needs to get fired or get the Epstein files released and get some Democrats arrested.
How is that not an abuse of power to direct the Justice Department to look into an individual, a named individual?
Look, the president signed that executive order. It's the position of the president in this White House that it's well within his authority to do it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed it. And he signed it, and that's his policy. Jeff, how you doing?
Fine, thanks, Caroline. A follow-up on Harvard. The president floated on Truth Social, I believe, the possibility of removing tax-exempt status. How serious is that threat, and are there other universities he's considering? And then a follow-up question on foreign policy. Can you give us an update on what the president hopes to come from the next round of talks with Iran?
Sure. First, when it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. There were professors who said that he had engaged in discriminatory behavior against Jewish students. Of course, you had the former president of the university saying bullying and harassment depends on the context. You also had an encampment on Harvard Yard that we all saw play out before the cameras. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorns. The president believes Harvard should apologize to its Jewish American students for allowing such egregious behavior. As for the tax exempt status, I would defer you to the IRS for any updates. I do want to answer your question on Iran. Of course, the maximum pressure campaign on Iran continues, but as you know, the president has made it clear he wants to see dialogue and discussion with Iran while making his directive about Iran never being able to obtain a nuclear weapon quite clear. And the president spoke to the Sultan of Oman today, who helped facilitate these talks. I have a readout for all of you. He held a call with the Sultan of Oman today, and he thanked him for hosting the first direct meeting between the United States and Iran and emphasized the need for Iran to end its nuclear program through negotiations. The two leaders also discussed the United States' ongoing operations against the Houthis and emphasized that the Houthis will pay a severe price until they end their attacks on maritime traffic in the Red Sea. As you know, an additional negotiation between Steve Witkoff and Iran's representative has been scheduled for Saturday. And since these are ongoing negotiations, I have nothing more to add on that. Sure.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. When you said that the president said that Iran will never have nuclear weapons, is the focus on dismantling the entire nuclear program, or it just restricting enriched uranium or the missile program?
The president does not want to see Iran have a nuclear program. He does not want Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. He's been very clear about this. Shelby. Shelby, you have a seat today.
I know, stole it.
Glad to see it.
Two quick ones on TikTok. First, is the president expecting to extend the TikTok ban that's now June 19th if China doesn't come to the table in time?
Well, June 19th is a long ways away, obviously. I think it's 2 months away. 2 months is a long time in the Trump administration, as you have all seen. We work at Trump speed around here. We get a lot done. So definitely don't want to get ahead. The vice president continues to lead these negotiations and talks. The president's involved and they're ongoing.
And then the president previously said he'd consider reducing tariffs on China in order to get a TikTok deal done. Is that option still on the table?
Look, the president has made his position on China quite clear, although I do have an additional statement that he just shared with me in the Oval Office. The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them. There's no difference between China and any other country, except they are much larger. And China wants what we have, what every country wants, what we have, the American consumer. Or to put it another way, they need our money. So the president, again, has made it quite clear that he's...
It's crazy what China exposed yesterday in regards to the luxury business and how we've been paying as the people that purchase these luxury items for thousands of dollars when they were really made in China for $10. Insane to me.
...into a deal with China, but China needs to make a deal with the United States of America. Sure.
On tariffs, yesterday in the Oval Office.
Which outlet are you with?
The Canadian Public Broadcaster.
Oh, nice to see you.
Thank you. Yesterday in the Oval Office, President Trump suggested that there could be some help for automakers. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is it tariff relief on the 25% tariffs that are in place right now, or the new tariffs that are coming up in May on auto parts? And a second on Canada, if I may. President Trump's tone when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations, Canadians have noticed it's shifted a bit in the past few weeks. Ever since the election campaign started, he stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. I'm wondering if that's on purpose and why.
I would reject the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada by questions from this group in the Oval Office, but they see him almost every day. But the president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. As for autos and auto parts, I don't have anything to read out for you there, but I think the point the president was making is flexibility, and he has flexibility when it comes to negotiations and talks. But ultimately, his goal goal in his fair trade deals that he is pursuing with many countries around the world is to put the American worker first. And we had automakers and auto workers here at the White House on Liberation Day who believe in this president and his negotiating ability to put them first and to bring those jobs back to the United States of America. And the president's been very clear about that in his conversations with the automakers as well. Deanna, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. One on Ukraine and one on China. On Ukraine, this past weekend, Zelensky offered an invitation to President Trump, extending an offer for him to visit Ukraine. Just wondering if there's any update on that. Has Trump seen that offer and what he's thinking about?
I don't know. Actually, I haven't talked to the president about that, or if he saw Zelensky's offer. I'm sure he did. I haven't spoken to him about it. I can ask him what he thinks. I certainly don't have any plans to share on a potential trip to Ukraine, though.
And then on China, this last week, Chinese officials were posting videos on social media sites depicting a Trump, JD Vance, Elon Musk in AI-generated videos working in factories, putting together Nike shoes and iPhones and products like that. Does the White House, have they seen these videos? Do you guys have a response to that?
I have seen the videos. I'm not sure who made the videos or if we can verify the authenticity, but whoever made it clearly does not see the potential of the American worker, the American workforce. The president believes in the American people, and he knows that we have the best not only consumer base in the world, but also the best workforce in the world. And that's why he's so focused on bringing investments home and shoring up our critical supply chains and bolstering our manufacturing here as well. Brett.
Thanks, Caroline. Would the president support a ban on members of Congress trading stocks?
I'm certain that's something the president would be interested in looking at, and I can ask him if he would support such a bill. Sure. Yes.
I have a question about the president's post from this morning on farmers. He asked farmers to be patient and just hold on. But a lot of farmers that I've talked to in the last week or so have said, they're in the middle of spring planting season and that a trade war makes everything sort of up in the air. What would his message to them be? And also, is there anything specifically planned to provide relief like in President Trump's last term?
Yes, well, relief is being considered. The Secretary of Agriculture, I know, has spoken to the president about that. And again, it's being considered. And as for the president's message to the farmers, he put it out himself. He could speak for himself much better than I can speak for him. And so I would just direct you to the statement he had telling the farmers again and reiterating his support for them and that he has their backs, which he certainly does. Kelly, in the back.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions. The first one, a Georgia man was just arrested over alleged threats to kill Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Reportedly, there is now increased security around the FBI deputy director. Can you talk about the level of threats against various administration officials? And then a second one on Biden.
I'm sorry to hear that. I had not seen that report. It's very unfortunately, and obviously the White House, the president, and the entire administration condemn any threats of violence against any administration officials or public officials on both sides of the aisle here in Washington, D.C. It shouldn't be tolerated, and we commend the local law enforcement agencies for arresting this individual.
Former President Biden, he's set to deliver his first major speech since leaving office.
What is Biden going to say, dude? He can't even read. He can't even walk. What exactly is Biden going to say? This dude's such a joke, and we already know that he was not the one pulling the strings when he was in the White House. It was Obama's third term, maybe the Clintons. We don't know. I cannot wait to react to that. He's going to be a stuttering mess unless they have one of his body doubles. What does Joe Biden have to say? Probably going to be wearing a diaper, barely waking up from a nap. No one's worried about what he's saying.
Plans to talk about what I'm told will be Social Security under the current administration, closing of offices, longer wait times, harder for seniors and people with disabilities to access earned benefits is what Democrats have been saying today. I wanted to get the president's response, or if he plans to respond to this, and comments on what Democrats are calling cuts to Social Security.
My first reaction when seeing former President Biden was speaking tonight was I'm shocked that he is speaking at nighttime.
Yeah.
I thought his bedtime was much earlier than his speech tonight. I understand the topic of his speech will be Social Security. Let me make it very clear ahead of former President Biden's.
Real quick before she answers, they've already said on about 30 occasions, Elon Musk, Doge team, and Trump's cabinet picks, Social Security, Medicare, none of that's getting taken away. So this is just an obsession question that the left likes to fearmonger on constantly because they know they have no policy which benefits the American people, and they know that they're at record low approval ratings. So that's all they have to hold on to at this point.
Remarks. This president, President Trump, is absolutely certain about protecting Social Security benefits for law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens and seniors who have paid into this program. He will always protect that program. He campaigned on it. He protected it in his first term, and he's back again to continue protecting it. On the topic of Social Security, I have some news before I let you all go. Later this afternoon, the president will be signing a presidential memorandum aimed at stopping illegal aliens and other ineligible people from obtaining Social Security Act benefits. The memorandum will direct the administration to ensure ineligible aliens are not receiving funds from the Social Security Act programs. It will expand the Social Security Administration's fraud prosecutor program to at least 50 U.S. attorney offices and establishes a Medicare and Medicaid fraud prosecution program in 15 U.S. attorney offices. The memorandum will also require the Social Security Administration Inspector General to investigate earning reports for individuals aged 100 or older with mismatched Social Security records to combat identity theft. And the memorandum will direct the Social Security Administration to consider whether to reinstate the use of civil monetary penalties against individuals who engage in Social Security fraud, an effort that has been paused for several years. These taxpayer-funded benefits should be only for eligible taxpayers. And President Biden should think about what he did in his last term, which is allow tens of millions of illegal people into our country, many of whom were fraudulently receiving these benefits. So you'll hear from the president on that later, and we will see you later in the East Room. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Caroline.
All right, guys, since that's over, I wanted to react to one funny story. It's Don't Walk, Run, and they just posted 15 of Trump's most viral takedown moments since he's been back in the White House. I think it's hilarious, and I wanted to react to it with you guys. Let me get to it real quick. Sorry about that. Watch later. Yeah, Don't Want Run. The top 15 most savage Trump moments since he's been back in the White House. This is going to be funny.
Hey, did you know that SMUD is now paying Sacramento homeowners thousands of dollars up front? But
heck, Seth, about the...
If you want to get your name, phone number, and address off the internet, but want to handle the removals yourself.
President of the United States. Early morning on Sunday, April 13th, Trump visited the press mid-flight on Air Force One.
You know, it's like 2 in the morning and we're doing this. You people requested. I'm always available, unlike Biden. Think Biden would do an interview at 2 in the morning? He wouldn't do one at 9 in the morning.
Fact check true. In the first few months of his second term, Trump has taken literally thousands of questions from the press, despite the fact that they treat him so poorly.
Okay, come on over here. You know the fake news? This is the fake news.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How are you guys? Good morning.
He says it right to their faces. What a savage.
You don't care. You don't care.
But it's not just the president. It's also various members of his administration. Now, I know it's only been a couple months, but let's do the top 15 most savage moments of the Trump White House so far. So coming in at number 15 is the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, versus CNN's Jake Tapper.
So how long do you anticipate this tariff chaos is going to be going on? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Well, first of all, Jake, thank you for having me. I think it's really important to realize that last Wednesday was when the president announced this new American order, the new American economic plan. We're now 2 days in, right? You've got 2 days of data. Everyone, especially on your side, on the left, is freaking out.
I'm not on the left.
But at the end of the day,
yeah, you are.
Whole concept. All right, Jake, thank you. This whole concept is about rebuilding.
I can't believe you said that with a straight face. Just own it, Jake. You're not fooling anyone.
I'm not on the left.
All right, Jake, thank you.
And speaking of CNN, here's number 14 on the list.
And this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility. Okay, who else? Yes, please.
Number 13 on the list involves a confrontation between Caitlin Collins and the VA Secretary, Doug Collins, no relation, where Collins was asked about Signalgate.
You served in the Navy and the Air Force. How would you have felt if information like this was talked about in an unclassified group chat, if a Navy fighter pilot, is in the air?
She's disgusting.
I think the one thing, Karoline, it's good to be with you tonight. I think the president and those involved in the chat, which I was not involved in the chat, have explained that. I trust the president's opinion on this. I trust what's been going on. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. My opinion is that my job is to take care of veterans in this country as they come out of service, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
We heard from some of your former colleagues up on the Hill today, some Republicans who said they don't like how the administration is handling this, that they're kind of tying themselves in knots by saying it wasn't classified information. Do you believe that a mistake was made here, though, to have this conversation, to add a reporter and to have it on an unsupported, classified group setting?
She's disgusting.
Caitlin, as I've just told you, I've just answered the question. I wasn't part of it. And, I'm not going to speculate more than what the president's already talked about and those who've been involved have talked about, but we'd love to talk about the veterans.
But Caitlin Collins doesn't actually care. She just wanted to keep asking about Signalgate. And Doug Collins wasn't having it.
Yeah, and I do have questions about the veterans, but given what we saw with the group chat and how this was used, you are a member of the cabinet. You obviously know these other members, several of them who were in there. Is this typical for the cabinet to have conversations over Signal? Is this something that you use?
Well, Caitlin, since you undoubtedly do not want to talk about the VA, I have a question as VA Secretary. As Cabinet, I want to ask you, because I've been curious about this, because my job is to take care of veterans, and I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida, where you just had a $5 million defamation suit taking offense at a veteran who was trying to help people.
Doug Collins is referring to U.S. Navy veteran Zachary Young, who sued CNN over a hit piece that aired in November 2021 that painted Young as a black marketeer smuggler, illegally profiting from charging exorbitant fees to desperate people trying to flee Afghanistan.
That person offering those evacuations, Zachary Young, he wrote, "Availability is extremely limited and demand is high." Jake, he goes on to say, that's how economics works, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Alex Marquardt, thanks so much for that important report.
I have a question for you, Kaylin. Is that employee still employed? Are you really concerned about veterans? So if we don't want to talk about veterans now, you want to talk about everything else, I'd like to hear from CNN as the veteran cabinet secretary, why CNN seems to have a problem with veterans.
Well, Mr. Secretary, respectfully, my question was about whether or not you as a member of the cabinet use this. And respectfully, I'm conducting the investigation. And I do have a lot of questions for you on Veterans Affairs.
No, She's conducting an investigation, guys. But listen to her reasoning as to why she won't comment on the actions of a fellow CNN employee.
I've asked and answered your question. Why don't you answer mine? Are you still, is this person still employed who said they were going to nail one of my veterans? Who you had to do a $5 million award from a jury because of defamation, and then you settled the case. Answer my question.
Respectfully, sir, I'm asking the questions here, and I have no involvement in what you're referencing there.
So Caitlin Collins demands that he answer all of her questions about the Signal chat because he's part of Trump's cabinet. But at the same time, she claims that she had no involvement in the Zachary Young piece, doesn't need to answer questions about CNN, even though she works at the network. In other words, rules for thee, but not for CNN.
Yep.
Number 12 on the list is when Stephen Miller turned the tables on CNN's Jake Tapper.
And I want to really drill down on this, Jake, because it's so important.
Oh, I saw
There's
this.
2 million employees in the federal government. Overwhelmingly, the career federal service in this country is far left wing.
I don't
people.
I don't know that to be a fact.
Well, I'll give you a great example. We looked at USAID as an example.
That's
98% of the workforce either donated to Kamala Harris or another left-wing candidate, just as an example.
Okay, but
let me just
an entire workforce is having a
whoa. Did you just say that saying someone voted for Kamala Harris is demonizing them?
No.
So according
your suggestion is that there's a bias.
No, but you used the word demonizing. You just said that I'm demonizing.
Who else loves Stephen Miller? This guy takes down the fake news every single time. He's a genius. I really like Stephen Miller.
Somebody by saying they voted for Kamala Harris.
Let's get back on track.
But I am on track.
Number 11 on the countdown is when Trump was answering questions on Air Force One and was surprised to learn which outlet a reporter was from.
Vice President suggested that if the Supreme Court rules in a way that you don't like, they can just enforce it by themselves. Do you agree with that?
I don't know even what you're talking about. Neither do you. Who you with?
Up close, sir.
Who?
Up close.
Oh, no wonder. I thought they died. Are they still around? I haven't read them in years. I thought they died.
Number 10 was when a reporter asked Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth about the nomination of Dan Kane to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Why did you select an underqualified retired lieutenant general to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
I'm gonna choose to reject your unqualified question. Who's next?
Imagine being so stupid to think that a highly decorated 3-star general is underqualified for anything. That reporter 100% deserved that response from Hegseth. And of course, you know the type of questions that he was probably asking during the Biden administration. What kind of ice cream did you order, Mr. President?
Chocolate chip.
Number 9 on our countdown is border czar Tom Homan versus a Haitian.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? No Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro. I'm not going back.
As I've been saying, the Democrats with Biden and Obama are for the criminals and the illegals, while Trump is for American taxpayers.
Well, he's wrong. He's going back to Haiti. I tell him that.
Number 8 on our countdown is when Vice President J.D. Vance attended the Munich Security Conference and gave a blistering speech criticizing European leaders and their approach to democracy and free speech.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. When we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership.
So instead of going to Germany and kissing Europe's ass, Joe Biden style, Vance gave an excellent speech calling out these supposed democratic countries. One moment that stuck out was when he called out Germany for their Orwellian free speech policies.
This very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action.
They are literally arresting people in Europe for posting memes. But journalists like Face the Nation's Margaret Brennan are more concerned about making the Trump administration look like Nazi sympathizers. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio is there to push back, which is number 7 on the list.
He also met with the leader of a far-right party known as the AfD, which, as you know, is under investigation and monitoring by German intelligence because of extremism. What did all of this accomplish other than irritating our allies?
Why would our allies or anybody be irritated by free speech and by someone giving their opinion? We are, after all, democracies. The Munich Security Conference is largely a conference of democracies. They don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think actually makes his point.
Exactly. The left only likes free speech that it agrees with. But then Margaret Brennan tried to imply that J.D. Vance is promoting extremism by pulling this historically illiterate claim out of her ass.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that.
I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
I can't believe that she still has a job after that.
That's what I always say. Imagine if big media was fair down the middle, it's like 90% against Trump, and he still has a record approval. That means that people just ain't believing it anymore. They ain't buying
You know
it.
I can. Anyway, let's watch Margaret Brennan's most excellent rebuttal.
Mr. Secretary, I'm told that we are out of
Hey, Sharon, hope you're having a great day.
time. A lot to get through with you. We appreciate you making time today.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a minute.
Our electrical technology career training program sets you up for success in residential, commercial, and
Number 6 on the list is when AP reporter Josh Boak went up against White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt.
If we could just step back for a second. When President Trump last addressed the BRT when he was on the campaign trail, his big push was on tax cuts. He's going there today as he's proposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs.
Not
And
true.
I'm curious
He's not doing
why
that.
he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people. And the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts, as you know.
But then, for some reason, Josh Boak tried to make it personal and immediately regretted it.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
They
it.
don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when
Wow.
we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's
Exactly.
insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press.
Number 5 on the list is a now classic confrontation between Vice President Vance and Margaret Brennan.
Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Let me ask this question,
But
Margaret.
the-
Let's
Dumb
separate the
question.
immigration issue. If you had a violent murder in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and
course.
get that person out.
Of
So what's
course.
the point of the question?
The point of the question, of course, was to make the Trump administration look like monsters. But VP JD Vance is very skilled at this.
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember.
And that's correct. According to the Department of Justice, an Afghan national motivated by ISIS was arrested for allegedly conspiring to commit a violent attack on Election Day.
He was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't.
And that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
I don't really care, Margaret.
Number 4 in the countdown occurred during a White House working meeting with governors, where he called out the governor of Maine, Janet Mills.
I love this.
I signed an executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. Many Democrats are fighting me on that. I hope you continue because you'll never win another race. The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it? We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX.
I will never get, this is another thing the Democrats want to die on, is letting men pretend they're women and go into women's sports. So dumb.
They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens. We're going to protect.
But then, weeks later, Governor Mills would double down and claim that she didn't have to listen to Trump because he was making stuff up.
I read the Constitution. The Constitution says that the president, the chief executive, shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. It doesn't allow him to make laws out of whole cloth by tweet or Instagram post or press release or executive order.
But Trump is, in fact, taking care that laws be faithfully executed. In this case, Title IX, a federal law that Governor Mills is not only ignoring, but violating.
And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be an elected politician.
The thing we hear over and over and over again is, why do I need a deodorant for private parts? I can just take a shower. So,
Number 3 on the countdown was during a White House event for the LA Dodgers. As presidents are wont to do, Trump acknowledged several members of the audience, including members of Congress.
We have also Representatives Kevin Kiley, Congressman Kevin Kiley, Young Kim. Thank you. Congratulations. Great job. Jay Obernolte. Jay. Thanks, Jay.
But then when it was time to acknowledge the senators from California, Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla, Trump decided not to.
We have a couple of senators here. I just don't particularly like them, so I won't introduce. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team I didn't think it was that big a deal, actually. Washington.
Number 2 on the countdown occurred during a visit to the White House by the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele.
Actually, what you're doing with...
Oh, guys, I posted a video about this exact exchange yesterday. Viral. It should go viral. Everyone should be looking at this. They destroyed CNN.
With the border, it's remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
Okay. As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
True.
Do you have any questions, please? Go ahead. Let's not start with CNN because they're just so wrong.
So the big news surrounding the event was regarding the fate of Kilmar Abrigo Garcia, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. Both an immigration court and an appellate immigration court ruled that Garcia was a member of MS-13 and was illegally in the country. However, due to a paperwork error, he was mistakenly sent back to his home country. And since he's allegedly a gang member, he was sent to Sikhat prison in El Salvador. And the press has been obsessed with this case, trying to paint him as an innocent father from Maryland. And paperwork or not, he was going to be sent back eventually. So when Trump finally called on Karoline Collins, she asked if President Bukele was going to send Garcia back, since the Supreme Court ruled that the United States should facilitate his return.
She's so dumb.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low-rated. Which one is that?
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States.
It's only
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, if I smuggle him into the United States, or whether I do it, of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous.
This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. The foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
And that should have sufficiently answered her questions on the matter. But Karoline Collins is a glutton for punishment.
You said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago.
How long do we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. They always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them.
And now, the number one most savage moment on the list. On April 9th, as Trump was signing executive orders in the Oval Office, the camera panned over to reveal a visibly uncomfortable Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. Whitmer was reportedly expecting a private meeting with the president, but instead, Team Trump threw Big Gretch into the lion's den, knowing that it would put her in a vulnerable position because, as a powerful Democrat, she's supposed to be a leader of the resistance.
She's so dumb.
Not meeting with the bad orange man.
We're honored to have Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, great state of Michigan, and she's really done an excellent job and a very good person.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing. But then days later, the New York Times posted this image by photographer Eric Lee showing Whitmer attempting to hide her face from the media. The optics of meeting with Trump was one thing, but Whitmer's reaction made it 50 times worse. Does this look like someone who can stand up to Putin or Xi or anyone?
Hell no. Guys, I'm going to be going to an AOC and Bernie event with a crap load of Trump supporters today. It's going to be around 3. I'm going to be live streaming from this event. Hopefully, I can catch some crazy liberals throwing some big tantrum, as we know they always do on a daily basis. Please like, comment, subscribe. I will only be streaming it live from YouTube, Politics and Life. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Love you guys. Have a great day. Stay blessed. America first all day.